the human in the alien classroom. Jackson sat at the back of the class, quiet and calm. He was the only human in the entire alien academy. All around him were tall, thin, blue-skinned Krizari, short and scaled Yorans, and even a few insect-like Vectari. They all stared at him from time to time, but Jackson didn't care. He was used to it. The classroom was big and glowing with soft green lights. Floating desks and hovering screens filled the room. At the center stood the instructor, a four-eyed alien named Professor Ektal. He tapped the screen, and a hologram of a Krizari body appeared, spinning slowly in the air. "Today," Professor Ektal said, "we will study anatomy. Real bodies. One of you will volunteer." All eyes turned toward the Vectari girl in the front row. She quickly shook her head. "No? How about someone from the Yoran group?" the professor asked. They all looked away. No one moved. The class was silent, until Jackson raised his hand. Gasps. Laughter. One alien even dropped his datapad. "You?" Professor Ektal blinked all four eyes. "Are you sure, human?" Jackson stood up. "Why not? I'm ready." The professor hesitated, then nodded. "Very well. Come forward." Jackson walked slowly to the center. His boots echoed on the metal floor. The alien students whispered, "Humans are soft." "He will faint. They don't even have backup hearts." Jackson ignored them. He stepped up to the platform. The scanner hovered nearby, waiting. He looked at the professor. "Do I need to take my shirt off?" The professor nodded. "Yes, please, the scanner needs a clear view." Jackson pulled off his academy shirt. His skin was pale. His muscles were sharp and tight. There were faint scars on his chest and arms. The room went quiet. One of the Yorans leaned forward. "Those lines on his skin, are those injuries?" "No," whispered another. "Those are battle marks." The scanner beeped. A beam of light moved from Jackson's head to his toes. It showed his skeleton, then his organs. The screen changed colors: red, yellow, blue. Strange sounds echoed from the scanner. Professor Ektal tilted his head. "Strange. Your skeletal density is 2.6 times higher than Krizari bone. Is this accurate?" Jackson smiled. "Try testing my grip next." A robotic hand extended from the wall, a strength test. Jackson gripped it tight and squeezed. Crack. The hand bent, sparks flew, gasps again. A Vectari screeched. "He broke it," someone said. "No way. That was steel." Jackson let go and stood calm. "That's just normal for humans." The professor stared at him. "Your anatomy, it's not only unique, it's dangerous." Jackson looked around. "You invited me to this academy. You wanted to understand humanity. I'm here to help." Professor Ektal nodded slowly. "Then let us continue." The scanner moved again. It stopped over Jackson's chest. Suddenly, the screen flashed red. "Alert. Unidentified organ function." "What is this?" the professor said, pointing. "This organ, it's not in any of our databases." "That's called a liver," Jackson said. "It cleans our blood." The room fell into silence. "You mean your body cleans itself without tech?" an alien asked. "Yes," another alien gasped. "That's primitive." "It's powerful," Jackson said simply. A deep silence filled the room again. The professor clicked a few buttons. "We've studied over 800 species, but never like this. Your organs are more flexible, your bones are stronger, and your heart, it beats like a war drum." Jackson pulled his shirt back on. "So now you know what's under this skin." The class still didn't speak. Jackson turned, walking slowly back to his seat. As he passed, one alien whispered, "He's not a student, he's a weapon." The classroom was no longer filled with whispers. It was quiet, almost scared. Jackson stood at the center again, this time in front of the anatomy table. a flat glass platform with glowing blue edges. This wasn't just for scanning, it was for deeper study and live analysis. Professor Ekatal hesitated. Jackson, this next part is not easy. You must agree fully. It might hurt. I'm ready, Jackson said calmly. Show them everything. A soft hum filled the room. The table lit up as a ring of floating tools hovered down from the ceiling. They were meant to cut, stretch, and examine living tissue. Most students had never even seen them used on anything alive. A Urani girl in the back whispered, "He's going to let them cut him?" "Humans are crazy," someone muttered. Professor Ekatal raised a clawed hand. "We won't cut deep, just a sample, a minor tissue peel." Jackson nodded and laid back on the table. The surface adjusted to his shape. Cold, hard, familiar. The tools moved in. A tiny blade hovered over his arm. It glowed red. Sharp enough to cut steel. The aliens held their breath. The blade touched his skin, and it didn't cut. Sparks flew, but Jackson's skin barely dented. What is this?" the professor asked, stunned. Jackson sat up slowly. "That's a callus, from weight training." "You trained your skin?" the professor asked, shocked. Jackson nodded. "It gets thicker when we work hard. It protects us," the alien students murmured again. Another tool moved in, one meant to test pain response. It sent a sharp electric pulse through his shoulder. Jackson didn't move. The reading on the screen spiked, but his face stayed calm. "Pain receptors. Normal," the professor muttered. "But response control is inhuman." Jackson looked at the class. "Pain doesn't stop humans. Sometimes we train with it on purpose. It teaches us control." A Vektari boy raised a claw. "Why would you want pain?" "Because pain means we're alive," Jackson said simply. Professor Ekatal turned to the monitor again. "His muscle fiber is dense, rebuilding twice as fast as other species. Heat tolerance high, cold tolerance also high." The screen flickered. A warning popped up. "Potential Class 5 survival species." A hush fell again. "Class 5, a Krasari girl whispered. "But that's the same as war beasts." The professor cleared his throat. "Yes. If alone and unarmed, this being can still survive harsh environments, resist wounds, and defend itself effectively. Even without tech?" someone asked. The professor nodded. Jackson stood again. "We didn't always have technology. On Earth, we had to survive storms, animals, ice, fire. We adapted." The alien students looked at each other. This wasn't just anatomy, it was a lesson in fear and respect. A young Vektari raised her thin arm. "What happens if more humans come here?" Jackson looked around the room. "That depends. If you treat them well, they'll be your greatest allies. If not," he didn't finish. He didn't have to. The anatomy table dimmed. Professor Ekatal turned off the scanner. "Thank you, Jackson. This lesson is complete. But the learning has just begun." Jackson nodded and stepped down. The class didn't whisper anymore. They just watched him wide-eyed. To them, he was no longer just a student. He was something else, something their world was not ready for. The lights in the classroom were dim. The air felt tense. No one joked now. No one dared to laugh. "Professor." Ekatal walked slowly back to the front. His 4 eyes focused on the scanner still humming beside the anatomy table. "There's one part we haven't scanned yet," he said. "The internal organs. Deeply." Jackson stepped forward without hesitation. "Let's finish the job." The professor paused. "Jackson, this will go deep into your body. We'll see organs no one outside Earth has ever seen. Are you certain?" "I said I'd show everything," Jackson replied. The students held their breath. A new scanner floated down. It was black, sharp-edged, and glowing violet. This one didn't just scan. It revealed energy signatures, organ chemistry, even microscopic data. Jackson laid back on the platform again. The scanner moved over his chest. It stopped over the center of his torso. A red warning flashed across the screen. Unclassified organ detected. Warning, unknown function, do not interact. Professor Eketal's voice was soft. This is impossible. This organ doesn't match any known biology. The alien students leaned forward. It's pulsing, whispered one Krizari girl. But it's not the heart. The organ glowed faintly on the screen. Inside it, strange energy moved, warm, wild, alive. That's the liver, Jackson said, sitting up a little. It breaks down poisons. It heals us. Professor Eketal frowned. You mean it fights toxins? Yes, and repairs damage. The room was silent. The professor checked again. But it's regenerating cells, rapidly. Your liver heals itself even when harmed? Jackson nodded. Sometimes, not always, but yes. The screen shifted again. Another part of Jackson's body glowed. A small gland near his brain. Professor Eketal blinked. Another strange organ, it's releasing chemical signals. That's the adrenal gland, Jackson explained. It helps us deal with stress. It gives us power when we're in danger. The screen showed a new image. Jackson's blood rushing faster, his heartbeat rising, his muscles preparing. One student gasped. He's getting stronger just by thinking of danger? The scanner beeped again. Unknown. Emission. Rage response activated, caution advised. The professor stepped back. Jackson sat up slowly. We don't like to fight, but if we have to, we don't hold back. A Urani boy shook his head. You're not a prey species. No, Jackson said. We're hunters. The professor turned to the class. Every one of you has read about Earth. You thought humans were weak, that they were slow, but now you've seen the truth. He pointed at the screen. Your systems are built for balance. His are built for survival and war. A quiet voice broke the silence. If one human is like this, what if more come? Jackson looked at them all. We're not coming to conquer. We came to learn. But don't mistake kindness for weakness. The class didn't move. They stared at the glowing screen, where Jackson's organs continued to pulse, heal and grow stronger, right before their eyes. One student whispered to another, they don't need weapons. Their bodies are weapons. Professor Eketal slowly powered down the scanner. His voice was calm but heavy. This class is over. What we've learned today will change everything we thought we knew about the human species. Jackson stood. He didn't say anything more. He just looked at them once, then walked out the door, and every alien in that room knew. Nothing was going to be the same again. The next day, no one looked at Jackson the same way. He walked into the academy cafeteria. Conversation stopped. All eyes turned toward him. Some stared with fear, others with curiosity, a few with something else, respect. But one alien didn't care about any of that. His name was Trell, a bulky Varnak warrior species, tall, wide, with 4 arms and bone-plated skin. He slammed his tray down across from Jackson. So, Trell grunted, you're the human who scared the scanner. Jackson calmly kept eating. I didn't scare anything. I just volunteered. Trell leaned forward. You think you're strong? You think your earth muscle means something here? Jackson didn't respond right away, then he looked up. Do you want to find out? Around them, a group of students gathered. Strength test, someone shouted. Let's see if he's really that strong. Within minutes, the class was back inside the physical lab. A large machine stood in the corner, the graviton press. It was used for testing strength against artificial gravity. Professor Eketal arrived, surprised. What's going on here? Trell challenged Jackson, a student said. Strength trial. The professor hesitated, then sighed. Very well, if both parties agree. Jackson nodded. I'm in. Trell cracked his knuckles. Don't cry when your arms snap. The graviton press adjusted. First up, Trell. He stepped under the pressure bar and gripped the handles. Gravity increased, 100 kilo, 200. 300. Trell grunted, his arms bulging, legs shaking, 100 kilos. He roared and dropped the handles. Applause. That's the Varnak champion, someone shouted. Trell smirked and looked at Jackson. Try not to die, little human. Jackson stepped forward silently. He didn't stretch, didn't warm up. He just walked under the bar. Begin, the professor said. 100 kioi. Jackson didn't even flinch. 200, no change. 300, still steady. 400. His fingers gripped tighter, but his face remained calm. Already matched Trell, a voice cried out. Jackson's feet sank slightly into the platform. His body tensed, but he didn't break. Is this real? Someone gasped. He's going to hit 700. The machine shook. Red lights flickered. Jackson's eyes narrowed. He pulled harder. The machine screamed in protest. Alert. Limit exceeded. Safety protocol engaged. The machine shut off. The room was dead silent. Jackson stepped back. Not a word. Not a sound. Trell's mouth hung open. He broke the press. Someone whispered. He didn't even scream, another said. Professor Ekatal walked up, scanning the machine. He reached 720 kilograms. That's impossible. Jackson rolled his shoulders. On Earth, we lift more than just weights. We carry pain, loss, duty. Trell stepped forward, still breathing hard. What are you? Jackson looked him in the eye. Human. The crowd didn't cheer. They just stared. Some were afraid, some were amazed, and some finally understood. This wasn't just about strength, it was a warning. The next lesson wasn't about muscle or organs, it was about the brain. Professor Ektal entered the class slowly. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept all night. Today, he said, we will scan the mind. We'll see how thoughts move, how fear forms, how memory works. No one spoke. All the students knew who the subject would be. Jackson sat quietly at his desk, watching. The professor sighed. Jackson, would you allow a brain scan? Jackson stood. Yes. The class didn't cheer. They didn't joke. They simply watched him walk to the front like he was carrying a bomb. This time the scanner was different. Small, thin, silver. It attached to the back of his head just above the neck. Professor Ektal pressed a button. Beep, a projection filled the room. Glowing 3D map of Jackson's brain. It pulsed with colors, blue, green, red, and something else. Gold. The professor blinked. That can't be right. What's wrong? Asked a Victari girl. Ektal stepped closer. His brain is overactive. Multiple sectors are firing at once. Emotion, logic, fear, memory, all awake. That's normal, Jackson said. For you, maybe, the professor replied. But not for any species we've ever studied. A warning flashed on the screen. Caution. High threat profile. Strategic thinker class. Cortex, density. 230% above average emotional resilience. Maximum. Jackson turned slightly. What does that mean? The professor stared. It means you're built to survive fear. You feel it, but it doesn't control you. Trell, the alien who had once mocked Jackson, leaned forward. That's why you don't panic. Not during pain. Not during pressure. Jackson nodded slowly. Fear is just information. Humans learn from it. Another student raised a hand. Can he lie? The professor checked the scanner. Yes, but his brain uses lies as strategy, not defense. Strategy? The class echoed. The professor pointed at the frontal lobe glowing in golden lines. This pattern is rare. It means he can make plans in seconds, predict outcomes, react fast. The golden lines shifted. New alert, simulation mode, active, estimating responses of 12 classmates. He's thinking about us right now, someone whispered. He's mapping our reactions. Jackson smiled faintly. That's what we do. Humans imagine. Then we act. A soft voice in the back asked, "Can you feel emotions?" Jackson looked back. Yes, maybe more than most. The screen showed sharp red bursts near the memory center. He remembers pain, regret, loss. The professor said quietly. Another student stood up. But he doesn't break. No, said Ekatal. He grows. Suddenly the room was quiet again, not because they were afraid of his strength, but because they had just seen something far more dangerous than muscle, a human mind. The Academy's med lab had never been this quiet. Professor Ektal stood near the sealed blood analyzer. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from something deeper, confusion and awe. Beside him, Nurse Veli, a soft-voiced, six-limbed Aelari, stared at the glowing vial of red human blood. Just a drop, she said. Yet it's changing everything inside the scanner. The machine whirred, then beeped, then stopped. Error. Sample unstable unknown bioregeneration code detected rerunning analysis in safe mode. Jackson stood calmly across the room watching. His arms were folded, his shirt sleeves still rolled up from the blood draw. I told you, he said quietly. It's not just muscle and thought, it's in our blood. Nurse Veli blinked all four eyes. But this is impossible. Your blood attacked the sample tray. Not attacked, Jackson corrected. It adapted. Another student gasped. Wait, his blood changed the machine? The professor nodded slowly. It's trying to adjust to the alien environment, even outside the body. The blood inside the vial began to move, not just swirl, but shift, like it was alive. It flowed toward a corner of the tube, stretching as if sensing something. That's not blood, whispered a Krizari. That's a living organism. It's called an immune system, Jackson said. Every human has it. But this one is aggressive, said Nurse Veli. It's learning, it remembers. A new alert blinked on the screen. Virus simulation. Human blood destroyed pathogen in 1.4 seconds immunity. Highly variable, extremely adaptive warning. Biological dominance possible. One Varnak student stepped back. His blood dominates other. Blood? Jackson shrugged. We get sick, but we fight back. Every time, stronger than before. The professor shook his head. Even your platelets are strange. They don't just clot. They rebuild tissue. Humans are built to heal while fighting, Jackson said. We bleed, but we keep moving. The scanner beeped again. Foreign DNA detected, match found. Recent alien virus absorbed. Mutation underway, adaptation successful. Everyone froze. Nurse Veli took a step back. Your blood just evolved. In real time, whispered a Victari. He's becoming resistant to things he's never faced. That's what Earth forced us to do, Jackson said. Survive everything, cold, fire, disease, even war. Professor Ektal turned slowly. Do you know what this means? Jackson nodded. That you're not studying just a human. You're watching a warning. The blood in the vial shimmered. Gold for a moment, then stilled. A moment passed, then another. Finally, Nurse Veli said softly, Your kind, you could live on any world, couldn't you? If we had to, Jackson said. A student stepped forward. But you're just one human. There are billions of us, Jackson replied. And we're all different, strong in our own ways. The professor closed the scanner. This school brought you here to learn from you, but now, I wonder if we're the ones being tested. Jackson didn't answer. He simply rolled down his sleeve and walked out of the lab. And as he left, every alien in that room looked at the red liquid still glowing inside the vial, because they now knew inside every drop of human blood was a survivor. It was the final lesson of the term. The classroom felt colder. Not because of the temperature, but because something had shifted. The students were no longer curious about the human. They were cautious. They were respectful. And some were afraid. Jackson walked in like he always did, quiet, calm, confident, but this time, no one whispered. No one laughed. Every seat was filled. Even students from other classes had come to see what would happen. At the front stood Professor Ekatal, his voice low and serious. Today we review everything we have, learned from the human. The lights dimmed. A hologram appeared above Jackson's desk. It showed images from every test. His uncut skin resisting advanced blades. His body under gravity more than a starship engine. His mind calculating a dozen possibilities in seconds. His blood adapting and defeating alien viruses in real time. The students watched silently. Then Professor Ekatal said, "But none of that matters now." Everyone turned toward him, confused. "What matters," the professor continued, "is what he did after all those tests." The screen changed. Images now showed Jackson helping a small injured alien on campus, giving his rations to a starving Vectari, shielding a weak student during a lab explosion, fixing a broken hoverchair in silence, then walking away before thanks could be given. His strength, the professor said, is real. His blood, his brain, his body, powerful. But what makes him dangerous is something else. He turned to Jackson. "Kindness," the professor said. "That's the most human thing of all." No one spoke. The silence wasn't fear now. It was understanding. Jackson finally stood and walked to the front. He looked out at them. "You've scanned my body, tested my strength, studied my mind, and even took my blood. But I didn't come here to prove how powerful I am." He paused. "I came to show you we're not monsters, we're not here to conquer, but we are survivors. And if you stand beside us, really stand with us, we'll stand for you. We'll fight for you." He stepped down from the platform, then something strange happened. One by one, the students stood, not in fear, not in silence, in respect. Trell, the Varnak warrior who once mocked Jackson, stepped forward. He lifted his heavy arm and offered a salute. "We accept your kind," Trell said. "Not as subjects, but as equals." The rest followed. The room was no longer filled with aliens and one human. Now it was filled with allies. And that day the Academy didn't just change. The galaxy did.